This video is nowhere near where I thought it was going to be when I first started recording all of this stuff. It started out as a tutorial about how to do a VR bowling game. Good Saturday morning, or whenever you're watching this. This is what I do on my Saturday mornings. So we've learned how to set up an XR rig and we've learned how to animate VR hands. So now let's start to make some games. And I'm gonna start off real simple. We're gonna make bowling, or it's real simple in my head at least. And then it turned more into a devlog where I would walk through the highlights of each little bit that I did for the game. And now it's turned into a word of caution for new developers, and also some tips and advice and things I would do differently for this project if I were to do it over again. And I'll end up doing a lot more projects in the end. So this is by no means a make or break thing for me. It's just kind of the way the cards fell on this project. I was so tempted to really clean up this game and make it super nice and almost like a releasable version of bowling. I kept running into issue after issue, and I didn't want to show that on camera. And I was really tempted to just clean it all up and edit it in post and make you guys not really see the downsides of this game that I made. But that's not really who I want to be on this channel. It's not what I want to show you. I want you guys to be able to see my development process and the things that went right and the things that went wrong, and hear my thoughts about what I would change and what I would do different and that kind of stuff. So that's more of what this video is about. It's not necessarily a how to do bowling, because I kind of failed at it and didn't spend the time to go back in and fix it. It's more of a, what are the techniques that I use to learn how to do some of these mechanics, and also what are some of the things I would do different in the future for the next games. VR is without a doubt the hardest version of game development to get into. It's a very, very unique player input system, and you have to take in a lot of things into account of how is the player going to move, how are you going to move them without them getting sick, all these different things that you don't have to think about when you do a first-person shooter or a third-person RPG game or anything like that. It's a lot of different factors, and then you have to deal with, well, what about the hand clipping through walls and all these different factors you have to think about when you develop for VR that you don't necessarily have to think about when you do first-person or third-person games, or even especially 2D games. As you guys know, I'm still a beginner in this VR development stuff too, so I'm still learning how to do Unity and how to use that and what are all the tools and buttons and the right processes of doing stuff. And I think Unity's still trying to figure out Unity a little bit, because during this project, I started out just doing, normal object-oriented game objects with mono behaviors and all that kind of stuff. And then I saw this really cool thing of, oh, there's an event system. I can start to use that a little bit. Maybe that would optimize my game a little bit more. And so I started to grab pieces of an event system and learning how to do that, as well as learning how to do this object-oriented stuff and trying to do Unity, learning how to do that. And about halfway into the event system, when it wasn't quite working out and I was starting to get bored of it and couldn't quite figure out how to do it correctly, I saw something on YouTube about how to do Unity dots, and that was the newest, greatest, fastest, most optimized thing, and you can have millions and millions of objects in your scene, and it's totally fine, and everything runs with physics and everything. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool, we're gonna start to switch over to the Unity dot system and using ECS and all that kind of stuff. So I started to learn that and go down that rabbit hole, and in the end, I'm just making this really small bowling game that doesn't have to be optimized. I'm learning it. That's the whole point of me making this game. It's not necessarily for me to release it to anyone or show anyone or anything like that. It's for me to learn how to do VR game development, and me getting sidetracked down, oh, let's use the event system, oh, let's use Unity dots, and doing all that was really just sidetracking me, and I wasn't focusing on the problem, which was learning how to do a basic game and just getting that from start to finish. In the end though, I don't really feel bad about not finishing it. It fulfilled its purpose. I learned a lot of stuff about object-oriented programming. I learned a lot of stuff about events and how to use that, and I learned that dots is still in preview and is very hard to work with right now. So I will not be going to that quite yet. It does look really cool, and I'm very excited to get into it once it starts to get a little more stable, but for right now I'm going to stick with object-oriented programming, using events sometimes, and use what I learned in this project, take it to the next project, and when I start I can build a good foundation and build up from there. So I actually did learn a lot from this project. It wasn't organized learning per se at all. It was kind of just me trying to build a game, and honestly I feel like that's a really good thing to do, is just start to build a game. And whatever interests you, something that's small, bowling, just a few mechanics, a little bit of math to figure out the lanes and what roles and all that kind of stuff, but something that will kind of push you a little bit and say, okay, well, if I was going to actually combine all of these mechanics into a game, how would I actually go about doing that? Because it's one thing to learn how to do all the mechanics, but it's another thing entirely to put them into a game and make it fun and interesting, and having to use different mechanics at different times to do different things. It really just makes you think in a little different way. And so I really encourage you guys to start to build a game and do some stuff and add some fundamentals together to make a cohesive whole, and then you'll actually learn a lot. Because this wasn't organized learning for me, but it was really just like I would build up until I got to a point where I needed to learn something else, and I'd go research that, and I'd come back and be like, oh, okay, I know how to do this part now. And then I did that up until the point where I just spiraled off into nowhere, and it didn't end up getting finished. But I mean, even though it's not a commercial game that I'm releasing, it's good, and it ended up getting me to where I needed to go to get to the next step in my developmental career of VR development and learning how to do that kind of stuff. So moral of the story, I'm still learning just like you guys are, and I'm going to keep putting out videos about me learning. My goal is not to be the best VR developer out there. There's other VR developers on YouTube that are amazing. My goal is to be a VR developer that continues to learn, continues to get better, and I'm going to continue to put out videos about me learning and the things that I learn and the stuff that I think is cool. And then eventually, once I get to a certain point, I'll start to put out bigger and better games that you guys can play with and you can have the source code for. And I just want to learn VR, and I want to teach VR too, because me teaching it to you guys is helping me learn a ton. I'm learning more than I ever would if I was never doing these videos. It really motivates me to keep going and keep doing stuff. But my end goal is not to be the best or be number one or have the best VR game. It's to just be better than I was yesterday and to keep going. Really, the end goal is to, how do I make this sustainable? How do I build that snowball up so it keeps going, and then in the end I can just do this full time. That would be incredible. In order to do that, you guys have been putting a ton of comments down in the comment section, and I absolutely love it. There's a ton of ideas down there, and if you come up with any more ideas, please put them in the comments, because I love seeing that, and I reply to every single comment. We're starting to build a good little community in the comment section, and I'm really excited for that. VR is cutting edge, and we are the innovators. We'll be there to make it mainstream, and I'm really excited to be a part of that community with you, and I'll see you in the next one.